Hi, students. All right, so if you were, this is just being sent out to students who are not at school today, Friday, FriYAY, September 20th. I told you when I got a minute, I would get the answers to page 233, 1 through 10. I would get those for you so that you can check your work and make sure you have a good understanding of what the material is from lesson 1. So question number 1 was a fill in a blank, and it said the amount of thermal energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of a material by 1 degree Celsius is called specific heat. That's the definition of specific heat. Number 2, distinguish between climate and microclimate. So climate is the whole region, the average weather conditions for a whole region based on its temperature and precipitation and vegetation. Whereas a microclimate is a climate within that climate. So the example in your book, they talked about urban heat islands, basically cities because they're full of concrete and asphalt. They also talked about forests and hilltops. Those are all microclimates because, like, if we had a big hill right here in Howard County, at the top of that mountain, there would be a microclimate because it would be a lot different than the climate the rest of us are having. Make sense? All right. Number 3, use rain shadow in a sentence. So remember, always make sentences that show that you understand what a rain shadow is. So maybe you said something like the downward slope of a mountain is the rain shadow side and the climate is desert-like. Maybe you said something like that. Question number 4, how are climates classified? The answer is D, by temperature, precipitation, and vegetation. The main two are temperature and precipitation, but because of the temperature and the precipitation, it will dictate what kind of vegetation will actually grow there. And I reminded the students all day today that vegetation is not just vegetables. It is all plants, okay? Vegetation is all plants, trees, bushes, grasses, everything, and veggies. Number 5, describe the climate of an island in the tropical Pacific Ocean. Tropical is the big key there. It is going to be warm year-round, and it's going to have high humidity, which means precipitation year-round. The vegetation is going to be tropical plants, maybe banana trees. Number 6, compare the climates on either side of a large mountain range. Well, that's going to be affected by the rain shadow. So typically for us anyway, on the west side of the mountain range, you're going to have very lush vegetation. There's going to be a lot of different species of vegetation because there's going to be a lot of precipitation and somewhat controlled temperature ranges. They're not going to be real drastic along the side. And then on the downward slope, you're going to have desert-like conditions. A lot less vegetation because you're going to have a lot less precipitation because those clouds formed when they tried to get up over the mountain. They formed in those high altitudes and they rained or snowed, and all the precipitation, all the water vapor is gone. So there's not much left when it comes down to the other side. So they don't get a lot of rain on the other side. Number 7, distinguish between weather and climate. So weather was the last chapter we did. You should know that by now, that it is the short-term atmospheric conditions that are happening right here, right now. So today's weather was hot, pretty humid, somewhat cloudy, a little bit of clouds going on out there. And the climate, we are in our summer climate. So we have high heat, high humidity, sometimes storms in our current climate. Number 8, it was to describe the climate types, and these were all on page 230, but real quickly, tropical is going to be warm year-round, high precipitation. You're going to always at least talk about temperature, precipitation. Do you remember those in air masses as well? Do you think air masses are related to climate? Temperature, precipitation. All right, dry climates are hot summers, cool winters, very low precipitation. That's why they're called dry. Low humidity. Mild is going to be warm summers and mild winters, not drastic winters. There's not a huge fluctuation between their summers and their winters. And there's usually a decent amount of humidity, so lots of precipitation. Continental's a little bit different. They have the warm summers, but the winters get really cold. And then they have moderate precipitation. It comes and goes. It's not always count on rain, but there will be rain. Polar is going to be very cold year-round and very little rain. It's going to be dry. It's going to be low humidity. All right. Number 9, distinguish between climates on a coastal location and a location in the center of a large continent. So if you watched my e-learning video, I told you that along the Gulf of Mexico, that's our coast, that's one of our coastlines, okay? So along this coastline, the Gulf of Mexico, we visit those cities during the winter because we can count on them being warm, a place that we can go that's warm, because their temperature range is really, really small. It's not very dramatic because the specific heat of a large body of water, the specific heat index, keeps those temperatures from bouncing crazy, okay? They keep it controlled because it's a large body of water with a high specific heat range. Its temperature doesn't fluctuate a whole lot, except for global warming, and we'll hit that later. So that temperature range stays pretty tight, pretty small. It doesn't go all the way down to negative 30 below. It doesn't do that. They stay within a pretty decent range. But if you go in the middle of the continent, say Indiana, we can have negative 30 degrees temperature in wind chill in the winter, and we can have over 100 degrees with humidity factored in the summer. We have a huge range of temperatures. That's a big range of temperatures, right? And that's a big range for our precipitation as well. So that's the difference between going along a coastal location, smaller ranges, and in the middle of a continent. So many things happen in the middle of a continent. You got all kinds of stuff, like for us, we got stuff coming from Canada, we got stuff coming up from the Gulf, we got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. We've got fields, low valleys, a little bit of hilliness. We got all kinds of stuff going on that's heating and cooling at different temperatures. And then we got little urban areas like downtown Kokomo with all of its concrete and asphalt taking in heat, and we're going to talk about that on Monday. We're going to do a lab about that on Monday. And then number 10, a lot of 8th graders struggle with number 10. It says, infer how you might snow ski on an island of Hawaii. So using what you know, altitude. The Hawaiian Islands are made from volcanic eruptions and mountains and layers. You get a high enough altitude, you could have snow. So that's how it could happen, is a high enough altitude. Okay? All right. Have a good weekend.